I'm Simon Kittok. I've been working here for 5 or 6 years now, doing captioning work. I work over in the Media Technologies office. Actually, I'm going to see if this... Oh. Okay. Oh. Okay, I'll just start with an icebreaker. Do you all know what closed captioning is? Can I just get like a...
Is it like the thing on the bottom of the screen?
Yes. Yep. So basically, it's primarily for deaf and hard of hearing folks. It's basically taking any audio information in a video, putting it on screen, timing it up with the video so that they can follow along, essentially. And I'm curious, being that I'm guessing you're all hearing, do any of you use captions, watching things? Yeah, a couple? Yeah? For everything? Like what do you watch captions on?
Netflix, I use captions a lot. Like usually I use them if I'm eating because then I can't really hear it that well. But I also just like have them on.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I just like having them on. So.
Yeah, cool. And we're finding that that's a lot of, more and more the case, that folks are just using them because maybe they're in a loud environment. Maybe they just like to have something else that they can kind of focus on. So yeah, if you're not aware, this is kind of the setup. Captions come in the bottom. You can generally, captions you can turn on and off. There's some other things like open captions or burned in captions where it's just permanently burned into the video where you can't turn them on and off. But today, I'm probably not going to take the whole 45 minutes, I'm guessing. It's just going to be a quick how I got into captioning, into the industry, why, like what captions we do at GRCC, and why we do captions at GRCC, and then finally just kind of focusing a little bit on English in general, and why having a good grasp of English is good in the captioning industry, but also just in life. So I started out in 2008 working at this captioning agency. It's actually in Grand Rapids. They do a lot of captioning for cable networks, basically. So I had the joy of captioning things like A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, lots and lots, way too many episodes of Bridezillas, and a lot of other, like the content that I captioned ranged from really, really dull or really, really bad to, like award-winning movies that they were showing on their cable channel. So it was an interesting experience, and I worked there for a few years, took a brief hiatus, quit that job, worked at a gourmet coffee roastery for a little bit. I just needed something different. But kind of bumped into someone from GRCC. They had mentioned that we were talking kind of about past careers, and my captioning experience came up, and I kind of got roped into doing captioning at GRCC because they needed someone. I guess I want to mention that working at the Network Captioning Incorporated, they really taught me how to do captioning. They trained me. There's special industry standards in captioning. So you have like speaker identification, you have special punctuation occasionally, you have to kind of be trained on how you block up the text so that it's the most easily readable, and training me on how to write in sound effects and like what appropriate sound effects would be to do. So basically just learning kind of the best practices in the captioning industry there. I think, like with most writing, editing is such a huge element of it in general and in captioning. And they really taught me how to kind of edit the captions down into bite-sized, understandable pieces. And I'll be coming back to that quite a bit. And also with editing, just developing a really keen eye for mistakes, like misspelled words, incorrect grammar, incorrect punctuation. And I think that's something that I've really valued from my time in the captioning industry, and I think it's something that I definitely want to encourage all of you to, as you kind of develop your English skills, that really keeping an eye out for those little mistakes that can make you seem unprofessional is kind of a really important thing. So jump down to the community college. I got hired in 2011. They were looking for captions so that they could better serve our deaf and hard of hearing population here, deaf and hard of hearing students and staff. And I've been working here in a full-time capacity for over 3 years now. So, and the workload is just getting more and more intense. So, jumping over to why, like GRCC, why are we closed captioning here? I think it's important, first and foremost, to recognize that GRCC is pretty good about being good to its students. They're really trying to do right by their students. And captioning is just kind of a universal design. Are you guys familiar with universal design? It's kind of like creating a course or a class that is accessible to as many different types of people as possible. So that, that includes your PowerPoints being accessible to screen readers, and your videos having captions, and it being proper heading sort of stuff. So basically, captioning is just an element of a way that can serve the most amount of students as possible. But I would be a little remiss if I didn't mention that there was an Office of Civil Rights complaint that happened at the school back in, it was 2012. There was certain elements of GRCC's Blackboard and website that were just not accessible to, I believe it was a blind student. Blind student complained to the school. School didn't react fast enough. An official complaint was made, and the school got on it really fast after that. So essentially, this is very, very serious. And if we wouldn't have kind of resolved this complaint, it probably would have proceeded on to the federal government suing the school. So basically, we did what we had to do. We resolved the complaint. Because of the complaint, we were able to find money to create a couple positions, including my full-time position and a director of accessibility. And then the Academic Governing Council, which is the council that kind of creates policy for students, created a captioning policy. And this gigantic block of text is just a tiny portion of that policy. And it says more or less, all audio visual media, which is any video content made, created, used on campus here, should be captioned in some way. And I guess it's worth noting that this was 2 years ago that they actually created this. Just next week, actually, the AGC is getting back together to revise this document to kind of make it more user-friendly for faculty. Let's see. Yeah, so the policy was basically because we had to, by law, kind of create a document, but it's also just because I think GRCC wants to do the right thing, wants to be good to its students. So kind of how closed captioning happens. The people that are requesting captions are going to be your GRCC faculty, any video material that they use in class, create in class, put on an online class, all of that material should be captioned. And you've probably been in classes where it hasn't been captioned. And I'll kind of get to that later. There's just an enormous amount of content. So, we kind of prioritize the way we need to. But basically, all of that content should be captioned, as well as everything on our YouTube channel. Has anyone checked out GRCC's YouTube channel? Basically, any speaker series, this probably entire speaker series, any commencement, any sort of event happening. I think there's over 5,000 videos on there at this point. Like they cram a bunch of stuff on there. So all of that stuff should also be captioned according to this policy. Where do the captions show up? Oftentimes it's YouTube. We're putting everything up on YouTube. Their platform is really easy just to throw some captions onto. We also have an internal server where if we need a video that needs a little bit more protections, or it has to be a little bit more private, we sometimes put it on our internal server. And I've also captioned DVDs before as well. And I won't really get into my process. I think that's a whole nother talk, and less to do with English. So just briefly, how do we do this? We actually outsource most of the transcription work, which is basically just dialogue to text, just a big block of it. We outsource that to rev.com. If we have to do any of it in-house, any of that transcription work, we use ExpressScribe and Dragon Naturally Speaking. Captionmaker is my software where I take that transcription, break it up into tiny little bite-sized pieces, and time it up to the video. And we do that in Camtasia Studio sometimes as well. So this is kind of what the Captionmaker looks like. So you can see here we have all the bite-sized little pieces of text, and then time code as to like how it's timed up to the video and for how long. And like I mentioned before, we have just a ton of content. And according to the mandate, according to our policy, we're really aiming to have 100% of it captioned. But at this point, it's only me working full time, some outsourcing, and there's like literally no way that I can actually get through all of the content. So at this point, we prioritize people who have deaf students in their classrooms. We prioritize content that we know is going to get a lot more views on the YouTube channel, and get to all of the other stuff later when I have a little bit of downtime. So onto that third category, why do we caption in general? Well, it's the law. There's a couple laws that basically say that every public institution has to have captioning involved with all of the video content. Rehabilitation Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. But more importantly than the law, again, like why do we caption? It's to benefit individuals on campus. So first and foremost, who are captions benefiting?
Obviously, deaf people.
You're right. So deaf and hard of hearing. Who else do you think could also benefit from captions?
People with reader.
Okay, so we also have people who have ADD, ADHD, people with learning disabilities and cognitive impairments, and people who are learning English as a second language. So yeah, essentially with these bottom two, it's just going to offer the same content but done in a slightly different way. So you're getting audio, you're getting text, you're absorbing in different ways, and sometimes that can be really helpful for people just to kind of absorb content. And also, obviously, like if you don't speak English, it might be harder to pick up what someone is saying as far as a person who's mumbling and stuff. So are you gonna, okay. Should I do this every time? Okay. Yeah, right now. Okay, so more or less, the reason why we caption is for student success. We want to create clear content that is accessible to everyone, and also just create a community where everyone feels welcome, you know, so that deaf folks don't necessarily have to like go and ask someone like, I need this captioned. We should just have it captioned. So we're going to be moving a little bit into that last category, and we're going to be doing a little bit of watching of captions, but we're going to be talking about these 3 elements. And I think these 3 elements are really important for captioning, but these are also elements that are really just important for when you write anything, you folks in the audience. So we're going to be talking about accuracy, and that's just going to be creating content that is precise. You're writing the right words, you're using correct grammar, using correct punctuation, avoiding typos. So you just want to make sure that you're not making any of those big mistakes, that you're getting a thought across precisely. Readability is a little bit harder to explain, but it's basically, imagine if you were given a 1-page essay to read in front of class. So the first one you get has your intro paragraph, your main body paragraph, your supporting paragraphs, and your conclusion paragraph. They're all indented. They all look really nice. You're given the same paper, let's say another 1-page paper, same content, but everything is mashed together into one gigantic block of text. No indents, no anything. Which one is going to be easier to read? Probably the one that's separated out into coherent thoughts and not mashed together into, for example, that policy statement. Like, that's just a huge block of text, kind of difficult to understand. So we want to make sure that things are blocked up, paragraphed correctly, and avoiding run-on sentences and things like that, just to make it easier to understand and easier to read. And lastly, clarity. And clarity is basically how you're getting your meaning across. So do you want, after someone reads that content, to be confused, or do you want it to be immediately clear what that content is trying to say to the reader? And that's really important for you as you write academic papers, that things are clear, that your instructor knows, your instructor knows what you're trying to say. For captioning, it's a little bit different, insofar as it's not my job as the captionist to make things understandable. For example, let's say a speaker starts a sentence, saying a sentence, cuts himself off halfway through, starts a completely other sentence, cuts himself off again. So it's not my job to take this and try to make it understandable for the viewer. It's my job to make it as accurate as possible. So I'm taking those blocks and I'm presenting them accurately. If speakers can't get out a coherent thought, it's not my job to fix them, So, but even so, there are ways to create clarity even if the speaker is very unclear about what they're trying to say. And that includes using proper spelling and punctuation, just so that you know kind of how a speaker is cutting themselves off, for example. Yeah, why don't you click that? OK. Is it OK if I, OK. For this part, it might be easier just for me to. OK, so we're going to watch a video. And it's the same clip all 3 times. We're going to watch it 3 times. How many of you are familiar with auto captions? OK. YouTube has this thing called auto captions. And essentially, it's when they get a new video upload, they just send it right into some computer algorithm that tries to guess at what the people are saying. It's kind of like speech to text, but it's generally really bad and not accurate at all. So we're going to be talking about those 3 things: accuracy, readability, and clarity. And the first video we're going to watch is just auto captions. So basically what a computer algorithm thought this person was saying. However, we're going to do it as if we were deaf. So I'm not going to turn on the audio. You're just going to read along and try to gather what this person is talking about. OK? So OK, Can everyone see those captions from where they are? Okay. Just make sure the audio is off. Okay, so what was he talking about? Anyone? Okay, so okay, so you got the kind of the main topic of discussion, but
I saw a president on there.
right, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this. Accuracy. What was the accuracy like on those auto captions? Yeah, terrible accuracy. What about readability? Was it easy enough to follow along with what was being said? No. Okay. And I would argue almost that it was easy enough to read along word by word, but because of the lack of accuracy, you had no context. You didn't know when he was pausing in any of that. And clarity, I think it's pretty obvious if the meaning was clear, coming across. So, so for this next one, same video. And this one, we're going to talk about the same things: accuracy, readability, clarity. I did fix up the script on this one, the transcript. But we'll talk about this afterwards about, oh, whoops. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Okay, accuracy. Accuracy of the script that was along with it. Did you guys understand what was being said?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what about readability?
It's better.
Too fast, and then there was like a huge block of text.
Yeah, so better, but I would agree. Like some of the text was on there way too short of a period of time. Maybe it was hard to kind of catch it all, and then just like a big old honkin' chunk of text. So readability, not so great. What about clarity?
I understood what you were saying.
Okay, and it was better than the first one.
Oh yeah, and I think the readability was better too because I actually could read the whole thing instead of doing word.
Yeah.
So I think it was all around better.
Okay. And lastly, I'm going to show you a version that I would personally put out as a professional captionist. And just to kind of show you how blocking things up, how making sure punctuation and how blocks are split kind of creates the best for understandability. So this is the final version. So that's kind of a final caption version. Things are blocked up nicely. You're cutting at commas. You're ending at the end of sentences. You're not having like multiple sentences in one block. Yeah, I think we could probably all agree that accuracy, readability, and even clarity, I would say that he's not a super precise, like not a super clear speaker. Like, he does cut himself off a number of times and kind of has a weird way of structuring his sentences, but I think it was as clear as it could be with those captions. So yeah, bite-sized chunks to create understandability. I just want to focus specifically on clarity for just a second. And I just want to go through a couple other examples of how things can become clearer by using certain elements in captioning. So for this first one, what's the difference between these two captions?
You're explaining that he's talking.
Right. So the first one, if you could not hear and was watching this, you might wonder why he said "excuse me." By putting in a sound effect, it really creates context for someone who might not be able to hear. This one, just a kind of a bland description versus being very, I think the precision and clarity is a little bit better in the second one, where you know exactly what you're getting. What about this one?
First one, you can't tell there's two separate people speaking.
Yes, correct. So at least here at GRCC, we use double chevrons, those two little arrows, to kind of indicate when a new speaker is coming on screen. So, if these two people were off screen, you might not know that it was two people speaking. So it's important to kind of indicate those things. And here, again, kind of just another, on the left there, kind of a bland description about what's happening, where you can really create some higher quality descriptions for people who might not be able to kind of pick up those things from an audio place. So I just want to point out that if you learn nothing else, punctuation is so important. I come across these sorts of things all the time, and I have to correct them. And as you can see, it can really change the meaning of what they're trying to convey, things you wouldn't necessarily want to convey. OK, and lastly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about that. My job is basically like a copy editor. I'm taking transcription, I'm breaking it up into little chunks, I'm correcting any mistakes. So I'm again, developing that really keen eye for finding mistakes, spelling mistakes, grammar mistakes, punctuation mistakes. And I couldn't do that without a really good grasp of English. And if I didn't have a really good grasp of English, they would probably fire me because I wouldn't be doing a very good job. And two, if they didn't fire me, my work would be a huge detriment to student learning. Students would not be able to kind of understand what was going on in any given video. And I'm really appreciative of my job. I want to mention that it is a booming field right now, transcription and captioning. Because the ADA is coming down on so many folks, it really is a high demand field right now for quality transcriptionists and captioners. So I want to give a little shout out to these two items here. I think these can probably also help you, and I hope you all use these things. I have a really good grasp on spelling, actually, and always have. But I always use Spellcheck. It's so easy to kind of your eyes just kind of fly over spelling mistakes, and Spellcheck is always good to kind of ensure that you're coming across as professional as you'd like to be. And Google, I use this a lot for technical terms. If I need to find out spelling of someone's name or of some location that has kind of a longer name, maybe I will double check with Google. I would just encourage you all to use these two things, and also just any other tools that you have at your disposal to, kind of create kind of professional writing. And I would like to say my last thought that I want to just leave with you is, as you're doing your writing for classes and outside of classroom work, do you want to come across as clearly as you can? Or do you want people who read your stuff to be confused or be guessing at your meaning? I would say that honing English as a skill is really, really, really important kind of in the professional world. And I think it's important to getting the good grades, to getting the good jobs, and just having effective communication with other folks. So thanks. That's all I have. If any of you have any questions, I can entertain those now. Otherwise, yeah, if you have any questions or need anything captioned in the future, you can get a hold of me at this website. Otherwise, have a lovely day. Does anyone have any questions about, I don't know, anything?
Do you need any prior experience to get into the business of captioning, or any, college degree or class experience?
I think that those things definitely help, but I'm pretty sure you don't. You need to have a good grasp of English, and you need to have a business kind of take you on, a captioning business to take you on and kind of train you in the very specific industry standards that are available right now. So.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks for showing up. I'm glad I didn't have to just speak to 2 people, so it's nice.